My name is Osei-Frimpong. I come to you every week, and I'm going to save you a lot of money and confusion right now and tell you that a lot of people use fancy schools and fancy sports teams as a proxy for parenting, or not a proxy, more like a substitute for parenting. And I will tell you right now that it doesn't really matter how nice your school is, how pretty the campus infrastructure, how rich the kids are, all of that, and how stunning the academics seem to be on paper, or how fancy the sports team is, if it travels across state or across nations or any of that. It doesn't really matter how fancy any of that is unless you're willing to put in work as a family, because these things are multipliers of particular family effort. They do not themselves autonomously generate quality either of academics or of sporting excellence for children. They do not teach the skills. What they will do is multiply, depending on their own quality, whatever you put in the household. Which is why, especially for youth sporting teams, it's better to go to the local rec league where you don't have to drive, an hour, 45 minutes, or throw away your whole Saturday. If you're willing to put in time yourself with the child, you save all of that time in traffic and put it in with the child, either throwing the baseball with them or working on drills with them. That is more important. Put in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, so I'm just going to say it. That is more important than making sure they're on the fanciest team. And I didn't really get that till I was coaching my kids' rec team, and one of the parents who said, I played travel soccer for 14 years, and the guy sucked. And I was just like, these travel teams are just taking your money because you don't have any kind of skills or awareness of the game. So a lot of these guys were just there. And I suspect a lot of private schools are similarly blessed, where you could send your kid to this really good private school as opposed to the local government school, which is right down the street. But the problem is going to be that your kid will be an also-ran for the other kids who actually get the home quality of education they need to then get enhanced by the private school infrastructure. And I know for certain that a lot of parents assume that schools will teach their children as a substitute for home, as opposed to, I think the parents who do it right, who understand that schools multiply and magnify whatever the student brings in outside of home, right? So there is no way of spending money that substitutes for actually doing the quality of parenting, the cauldron of the household, in creating excellence. What you can do is be separated from your money by these institutions who will take your money to create fodder and cast members and extras for the people who actually have support at home and substantive support at home. We then go to that same institution and then beat your kid. Right? So they will use the resources that you put in to give the kid who already has the advantage the bigger advantage, right? So your kid doesn't need to go, the fancier team, especially youth sports, the fancier team doesn't necessarily mean the best coaching. Especially I've seen some of these soccer teams, they have parent coaches on some of the private clubs. Well, if it's a parent coach, you might as well go to the rec league and either coach yourself or find a good parent, if it's a parent coach each way. It doesn't really matter. And all that time you spend in traffic, you should spend working on your kid's skills, because a few minutes a day consistently, 15, 20 minutes a day. Look, if you work a half hour a day on a sport with your kid for a year, they will be excellent at that sport if you work with them. Not just give them an app and give them a phone and say, well, you figure it out. No, you work. I suspect it's true with baseball. I suspect it's true with just about everything. You, as a parent, work maybe even 15 minutes a day. It doesn't really, you'll probably get more out of 6 months, more growth out of 6 months of that than you will of 2 years of just paying someone else, some fancy team, to get for them to learn out of their organizational practices. And that's the same with schoolwork. You spend the time, you do it yourself. You spend the time actually working with them and developing their math and reading 15 minutes each day. That's more than just sending them to a private school, and you won't get the character backlash and hoping that the private school just kind of does it because it's nice. And you have to understand that this is just the truth. And people who aren't telling you the truth, people who aren't talking to you like this they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you a service. So they're not substitutes. The fancy schools and the fancy travel teams and AAU, they're not substitutes for good household content that's being delivered onto your child. What they can do is multiply in different schools, and better schools will multiply at a higher rate whatever content you put in. But if you treat them as substitutes, you can't be surprised when your kid just ends up bad. Bad at the thing that you paid all of this money and you went to a fancy school to produce. They can't do the thing. Right? So I don't know what to tell you. A lot of people try to try to pay their way out of being parents, but it takes a lot of money. And zero, if you put in zero and you just pay the institution to do all the work, and the institution just a multiplier, 0 times whatever the institution, even if it's a very good multiplier, it's still going to end up zero. So I don't know what to tell you. I know you've been sold this idea that you can pay institutions to do your parenting for you as you go and make money, but that's just a recipe for crappy kids. And I don't want you to have crappy kids, because then your crappy kids come and talk to my kids, and I don't want your crappy kids to come to talk to my kids. I want your kids to be good, because I do want your good kids to come talk to my kids, and I want to help your kids be good. And if you want to help me help your kids become good, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, and $50 a month, and I'll keep doing what I'm doing, because a lot of people, especially they get confused by the glitz. They get confused by the glamour, and they assume that they assume that like the fanciest private school and the fanciest travel, sports, whatever, will substitute for just concentrated attention from a parent, and that's just not true. Save yourself the drive time and spend yourself with the kid, teaching them fundamentals. Teaching them the things that you expect to the institution to teach them. And when they go to a better institution, they will be able to actually multiply the gifts that you've given them in a way that actually, is tantamount to excellence. Thank you for your time, and I will see you probably later this week talking about something different. All right, peace. Bye.